I am joined today by a very special guest. He has got over 30 years of property experience. He is a property TV presenter. He's also an author. I am joined here today in the studio by Mr. Martin Roberts.
Hey, good to see you there. Yeah, I've got the scars to prove it as well. Look at this one. I shall show you. I'll start off this one. Look, that is a scar to be proud of, I think. That shows I've been at the coal face.
What happened?
Oh, it's a bad day with an angle grinder. It was like a wall like this, and I just had an angle grinder. I was doing the classic mistake of having it above my head, and it fell down and almost sliced off my arm. So actually, I feel very lucky to be here today. But I do that, and I think that's one of the reasons why I can talk with knowledge about it on telly. Excellent. I live and breathe property, and when I'm not doing my TV show, I am out there actually renovating houses, finding deals, going in there, negotiating the best prices, finding stuff on the auction websites to do out the kitchens and all that kind of stuff. And I think that enables me really to bring that knowledge not only to the TV show but to the trainings that we're going to be doing.
Good. Well, we're going to do a deep dive on all things property.
Yep.
You're going to be sharing some great tips and tricks, and we're really going to be showing people how to start and then what do they do to scale.
Yeah.
So take us back. Where were you before you decided to get into property? What was it that made you get into property? How did this all start for you?
The big leap, I think, is to switch from property being somewhere that you live, a roof over your head, as opposed to an asset which can actually make you money. And I think most people will come to that conclusion or that realisation in different ways. Personally, I grew up in a house where my dad was into his DIY. So our house was always in complete chaos, and there was always bits of things hanging out of walls and blah, 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 blah. But it got into my head that if you wanted something done, then you did it yourself. So when I got my first house, I inherited a bit of money from my granny. I bought my first house in Stockport, Romilly in Stockport. A really nice 3-bedroom semi-detached ex-council house, and I'm a big fan of ex-council house. It's really solid on a nice estate there. And I did what my dad had taught me, So I did the kitchen and I did the bathroom. At the same time, I was starting my media career. So I was working for a local radio station and doing some stuff, a little bit of telly, which paid very little money, like virtually nothing. £25 a week I was paid when I was doing my radio show. But at the same time, I did up this house and I bought it for £23,000. And 2 years later, I had to move, or decided I was going to move down south, and so I came to sell the house, and the value came round, and it was valued at 57,000, right? And we weren't in a massive growth period; we were in a steady period. So I bought a £23,000 house. I did the work myself. 2 years later, I'd earned about £17.48 from doing the media career, and I'd earn over 20 grand on this house. It's my own house, so I didn't have to pay any capital gain tax on it. So I basically had 30 grand. I was like, right, okay. And the penny suddenly dropped that actually property can be a way to enable you to do what you want to do. Because I love doing the media and all that kind of stuff. But property suddenly was a means to an end, and it was a way of generating so much more money than I could have got in any other way. And that just carried on. And then, so that instead of having one house to live in, suddenly you have one house to live in, hopefully, and you have other assets which you either buy and hold, you buy and flip, you rent out through Airbnb, you HMO, you do student lets, you do the AIST, you got a portfolio and you gradually build that. But it's that first one that's the hardest. And it was all these things, isn't it? It's overcoming the doubting Thomas on your shoulder. Yeah. It's, yes. You see people on the telly doing it, and you've heard the stories down the first people done that, but you can't do it. You can't do it because you're just Liam, or you're just Paula, or you're just Ahmed, and it's like, no, you can't do it because there'll always be the doubting Thomas, because you can never get every single duck lined up. But what you need to do is take good advice.
Great.
Listen to people who've done it before. Listen to the people who've made mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes. Educate yourself. And then you put yourself in a much better position to be successful. And I am a massive believer in property as a route to financial freedom.
Great. Wonderful. So what a great start. First deal, 30,000.
Yeah.
Then it's been like turning on a tap. 30 years later, you are where you are. If we've got someone tuning into this now and they're starting out, is there a particular property strategy that you would tend to lean more towards? Or what would be a good way to figure out what is the right thing for someone starting out?
So there's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
But the good news is there's lots of deals and types of deals that work for your type. Everyone has different risk profiles. So some people are happy to take a bit of a risk, other people are not. Some people are very practical, other people are not. Some people are very good managers, other people are not. Some people have got cash in the bank, other people haven't. So I think the great thing about property is you will usually find a strategy that will work for you, right? And the key for us, if you like, or you, if you're just doing it for yourself, is working out what you're comfortable doing. Because the most important thing is you never want to lose sleep at night over this.
No,
There's a way of safely earning loads of money without the stress. Now, we all have days when there's going to be too much to do, too little time, things are going to go wrong, the plumber's just told you, your boiler's just exploded, blah, blah, blah. Those things all happen, but they're manageable. But what you don't want is the lying awake at night worrying that, you made a bad financial decision and, oh my gosh, I can't pay the bills and blah, blah, blah. So you'll never be in that situation if you take good advice. So the reality is you can't say this is how to do it, because it depends who you are, and it depends what your circumstances are, and I guess our job, in terms of educating people, is to say, let's sit down and find out those things about you, and then we'll guide you to the property strategy that's right for you, because it isn't a one size fits all, but there is something for everybody.
Yeah, great. So you figured it out, you started doing some deals. How did you go from doing deals and then becoming a TV presenter, loved by tens of millions up and down the country? How did that transition take place, and why did that transition take place?
Well, my TV and media career carried on parallel to the property stuff. So I went to travel. I did a lot of travel reporting. Okay. So I did a show called Wish You Were Here, which some of the people watching might remember, with Judith Chalmers. And I was a travel journalist. And then when that show ended, some of the producers on the show were working on the idea for a property programme. And they knew that while I'd been doing the other stuff, I'd also been carrying on with all my property stuff. And they said, well, we've got this idea for this TV show called Homes Under the Hammer, and we think you'd be really good at it. So I did an audition, and I think they really liked the fact that I knew what I was talking about, because it was my day job. And so it wasn't like I was shoehorned into a show that I knew nothing about. I'm talking about newts, or I'm talking about making de blancmange, or growing wild orchids. It's what I live and breathe. So when the show started, I tried to bring very much a sort of educational aspect to it, and I know now from the feedback from people I meet, that people have been inspired. And I was going to see the story right. Last week, I presented an award ceremony for the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, RICS, right? And it was to honour their young people who were coming through the industry. And I just, at the start, I thought, this is a bit of a laugh at this. I said, okay, so the show's been going on for 21 years. In this room, is there anybody who was inspired to get into what you're doing now? These like top surveyors in the country, right? Anybody in this room who was inspired to do that because of the show I did on telly? And about 60 people put their hands in the air. Cool. And they came up to me after and said, we used to watch with our mum, and you just the show about properties, and it just got us thinking that you don't know what twigs when you're a little kid or you're growing up. So so I do know that it inspires people, and I do know that being out there just maybe making people aware that normal people can be successful.
Great.
In this world.
Good. So someone starting out or looking to scale a portfolio, and they are gonna want to go to auction and do the stuff that you're doing, Homes Under the Hammer. In today's market, what would you say are some of the key things to look out for when buying auction property?
So, obviously, auction and buying at auction is just one purchase strategy. And interestingly enough, only 3% of properties in the UK are sold at auction. 97% are sold by another means. So it's almost like it's even with the stuff that's on telly, you see, it's still a bit of an unknown. And I think that you can use that to your advantage, because I think there's lots of positive things about auctions. So there are definitely bargains to be had. Not all auction properties are bargains, but if you do your due diligence and you check things out, then you might find a bargain. And normally, I describe auctions as a barometer of the housing market. They when things are going well, they're doing quite well. When things are going badly, normally there's an indication that things are starting to slow down in the general market, and it happens first at the auctions. So there is a chance to bag a bargain. Okay, and it's all about who's in the room. It's all about spotting those little doer-uppers. It's all about doing research. So the main tips are do it, right? Because don't be put off by whatever you think the fears might be. But if you do it, bear in mind the basic things are you've got to get your finances sorted out beforehand, because you've only got
so many days, right? When the
days,
hammer goes down,
28 days, okay. 28 days, bing, bang, boom.
Okay.
So you can't swan in and then approach a normal mortgage lender and say, I'd like 28, I've buy this house in 28 days. You can get bridging loans and all that kind of stuff, and that's obviously expensive, and you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to make sure you've got an exit strategy from that. So you've got to make sure that you can finance this property, because you will, when the hammer goes down, not be under any illusion that is an exchange of contracts. It's not a sort of I might buy it. Yeah. With the traditional auction method, there is something called the modern auction method, where you're almost buying an option. But let's stick with the traditional auction method, because that's the one we like the best. Your 10% is paid straight away, and then you will have to find the remaining 90%. Within a maximum of 28 days. So you've got to make sure you don't buy a pub. So you need to check it out. You need to go around the property. You need to go around with somebody who knows what they're talking about. So an RICS surveyor, or at least a good builder, somebody who knows what they're talking about, to spot those potential problems. You must read the legal pack. So every time a property is sold at auction, there will be a pack of information, which is the same kind of information that your solicitor would pull together after 3 months of you going through the normal buy and sell process. And it'll list, any disputes with the neighbours. It'll list rights of way. It'll list of, anything to do with the actual legal title of the property. It's really, really important that you read that document, because there could be hidden problems in there. And in fact, the biggest warning and the biggest potential pitfall is never the house, because you can always fix a house. Yeah. You can underpin it. You can get rid of the dry rot and the wet rot. You can get rid of the Japanese knotweed. You can do everything. It'll cost you, but you will get there in the end, even if it's got subsidence, if it's whatever it might be. If the title is defective, as in the legal side of it is not right, it's a completely different kettle of fish, and effectively that property could be worthless.
Okay, great, brilliant tips. So how do you also at an auction make sure you don't overpay? Because people get really excited, don't they? So just a top tip, you're in that auction, you've done all the research, it's a cracking deal, you've crunched some numbers, and let's just say you've worked out that your maximum offer is, say, £150,000. You and I know people go way over that. How do you hold your nerve? What do you do in that situation if it's just such a good deal, but you don't want to overpay, but you don't want to lose a deal as well?
Well, you have to do all your research beforehand. Okay. It shouldn't be a spur of the moment thing. Yeah. So you've got to know that at 150 grand it works for you. Okay. And set that budget, and once you reach that budget, sit on your hands.
Okay.
I mean, literally make a physical thing.
I don't think I'd be very good at auction, because I'd just buy on emotion.
Would you? You'd be rubbish.
I wouldn't be very good.
You'd be completely rubbish. You'd be the auctioneer's dream. But that said,
just sit on your hands. I love that.
But that said, and this is why it is called auction fever, because you'll go 150,000. Somebody bid 150 and a half, and you go, it's only an extra 500 quid. So it's 151, and then. Okay, 151. And then you've got up £1,000 over what your budget was. We'll let you get away with that one, but you start going any more than that, and you're going to be ticked off by me when I get to hear about what your budget was.
Okay, good. So we've spoken about auctions. Let's just talk about agents, because it's not the only way to go and get deals, and you've had a lot of experience with agents.
Yeah.
What would you say to anyone going out to agents for the first time or looking to scale? How do you get an agent on side? What's the best thing to say? A lot of people are really nervous about going out to agents to start with. There's really no need to be nervous. So if you can just share some insights on your view on agents, how to get the best out of agents, and how can you build your confidence to just get out there and get deals from agents?
2 words. Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay, love it. Explain. How many of them have you eaten?
Too many. You turn up with a 12-pack of Dunkin' Donuts the first time you're going to visit an agent. They say, nice to meet you. I brought you some donuts. Do you think they're going to remember you?
Yeah, great. I love
and
that.
I know it's silly, but will they remember you? You tell me.
Sure, 100%.
Of course they will. You turn up with some donuts. Now, everyone's going to turn up with donuts. I know. Only if you're watching this podcast, of course.
Yeah.
And it's a big country, so hopefully all these very fat agents are, what's happened to all these agents died of cardiac arrest? Like, we've lost 50% of the agents in the country. Why is that? Oh, we need too many Dunkin' Donuts. Well, it's Martin's fault. Anyway, no, but, and that is, I'm being slightly silly, but I'm not. Because it's about relationships.
Great, love that.
And how am I going to build a relationship with you? I'm just going to be normal. I'm going to be a nice person, somebody who you want to deal with.
Yeah.
Because I've got a choice as an agent. I'm going to call you Liam, or I'm going to call Paul, or I'm going to call Brenda, or I'm going to call, whoever it might be. Actually, you know what? I really like him. I've got a choice.
Yeah.
So make them like you.
Yeah, so when we talk,
and actually be nice.
So when you hear about agents having the deals in their top drawer before they go to Rightmove, they do exist.
Yeah.
And if you're at the top of their radar and you built a relationship, you will then get the deals.
Yes.
Great, love that.
I mean, they want to move on their properties as quickly as possible, and they want to move on them in the best interests of their clients for the maximum amount of money. If you have, the first one's always the hardest. When you get a deal, if you do everything you say you're going to do in the timescale that you say you're going to do it, and you make the whole process painless for them, your solicitor's on the ball, the money comes through when it's supposed to, you're answering paperwork, you're picking up your phone, you're doing all those things, as quickly as possible. So they go, well, that was easy. You tell me, human nature. What am I going to do? I've got 2 choices. Person who's a pain in the arse to deal with, or somebody who's actually brilliant and brought me Dunkin' Donuts. Who am I going to offer that deal to?
The Dunkin' Donuts wins every time. Great. So we love agents. Agents are on our side,
absolutely,
yeah? Okay,
absolutely.
That's good.
100%.
So, look, the market changes all the time.
It does.
You've seen many different cycles.
I have.
What would you say to anyone right now that says buy-to-let is dead, property is dead, you can't make money in property? What would be your answer? Because there's a lot of skepticism around at the moment. So you're in the midst of it all. What do we say to those sorts of people?
So I'd say...
Politely,
yeah, well, quite. I'd say, let me take you back to the day before the last really massive property crisis in 2006, 2007, when the bottom dropped out of the world, when Lehman Brothers went fut, when stock markets collapsed, when bonds went sky, everything was utter chaos, and the world was going to collapse. And property, like many other things, took a really bad hit. Okay, it was a really bad time. And I'm going to say you've got the option to buy a property the day before all that happened. All right, it's property in London. All right, okay, it's in Pimlico, but at that time it was 250,000 quid. Now, the following day, it dropped to 150.
Yeah.
But what is it now? So, would you want to buy it at that price the day before it all went as bad as it could possibly go wrong in current history?
I would say yes, because I know.
Yes.
But maybe a lot of people would say
but
no.
Property has goes ups and downs, ups and downs. But if you look at the trend long term, it's always in the right direction. And not all property is a good buy, okay? But if you do your research, and in general, I would say, the percentage of people who've done okay out of property versus the percentage of people who've done badly out of property is way skewed to the people who've done well. And if you worry too much about, is it the best? Is it the height of the market? Is it the lowest of the market? Is it going to collapse in a bite? Just think about 2006. If it all went as badly wrong as that, which is about as badly wrong as it could ever go in our current times, right? The world is in financial meltdown. And if you'd still do okay if you'd bought just before that happened, can you extrapolate that out to today? So let's say something property Armageddon-wise happens tomorrow, and you bought at today's price and it dropped down. So if you're buying and selling immediately, well, it's a bit like stocks and shares. You only realise a loss when you sell. So it's about, just hanging in there. Property, don't get me wrong, property is not a liquid asset. It's not something you can get in and out of like you can stocks and shares or gold or various other assets, but that has a modifying effect that yes, it goes up and ups and downs, but that curve is always in the right direction. So I think it's very easy, the doubting Thomas on your shoulder, to find lots of reasons why you shouldn't do it, and you'll be here in 20 years' time with one property or no property and no pension.
So see every property on its own merit, and even in a growing market or a dying market, there's good deals and bad deals. Just always look for the good deals, make sure your numbers
and go from there. And as I said, not every property is a good buy. It has to be fit for purpose, and that's you've got to look at the kind of property you're thinking about buying, where it's located, and what is your end game? Is there a market for student accommodation where you're thinking about buying a student house? Something as basic as that. If you're looking at renovating, a 3-bed terrace, which is likely to be a family home, are the schools good nearby? It's don't want to be facetious, but it's not rocket science, right? If you do your research.
Good property, good location, good amenities, buying it at
the right price.
Check out the comparables, find good tenants.
And what we don't sometimes appreciate is in the UK we have such a solid infrastructure for property purchasing through the land registry and all the legal side of things that all the information is available through the land registry website. So you can see the history of a property, you can see when it's been sold, you can check out its legal status, all that kind of stuff. When it comes to property auctions, there's a fantastic site called EI Group, and they have all the data on property auctions that have happened over the last 17 years. And again, you can see if properties are coming up again and again and again. Maybe they've got some issues with them or whatever. So we are lucky, if you were trying to do this in countries which didn't have such a well-formulated legal process or structured process for buying and selling, I'd be worried. But in this country we do. So and that's why we have such a thriving property market.
Great.
And so many opportunities. And also, we don't have enough houses in this country, as we know. And I think it always makes sense to buy a commodity which there aren't enough of.
Yeah, great.
Supply and demand.
Okay, so we're sort of near into it. You've shared some incredible words of wisdom and golden nuggets. Let's just take someone that's tuning into this. They really want to do it, but they don't have the capital to get started. And we know a lot about joint ventures and using investor funds and no money down deals. What do people need to do, and how do they do it? How do they get started with no money, and how can someone go and find investors?
So often when you start out, the one thing which you have is time.
Yeah.
And that is a commodity which sometimes people who've got a lot of money don't have. Okay. So start small, right? Excuse me. Start in an area that you know. If you want to end up with a flat in Kensington or Chelsea, don't start there. Start, on a concentric ring, an affordable distance away. And obviously, if you're looking at the London area, great transport links. So you'd look at that, Elizabeth Line, blah, 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 blah. So start with something that's affordable. Find something which you can add value to, right? Find something which you can put your time into and make a difference, like I did with my first house, right? Yeah. All I did was do the kitchen and the bathroom. Didn't cost me anything, apart from the bits and pieces, obviously. Yeah. But I made 30 grand on that because I had time to do it over that 2-year period. So do that. And then, just there will be people out there who will be interested in doing some kind of a joint venture with you.
Great.
Who you just strike a fair deal with. And it needs to be legal, it needs to be set up properly so there's no misunderstanding in the future. But it could be that they give you, that if you're short of that initial deposit or whatever it might be, that they can provide that. They can maybe underwrite a mortgage, based on their credit history, or if your credit history is a little bit dicey, and then you start to build your own pot, and you give away 50%. I always like 50%. They get 50, you get 50. That always feels fair to me. Brilliant. But let's say you make 30 grand like I did on my property all those years ago. They get 15 grand, you get 15 grand. Nice. So you got 15 grand. Yeah. Okay, 15 grand. Okay, so that's 15% of a £100,000 loan. Will somebody give me a loan for £100,000 if I put 15 grand in? I reckon we could talk to a few brokers and get that if we show them a convincing deal. So now you're able to buy a £100,000 house from that first deal. And all you made was 30 grand.
Yeah, and get started.
And
build the confidence.
And the knowledge.
Start building the knowledge and building a network.
The most important thing is get good advice. Listen to people who've done it before. Don't think that you can just stumble into it, because you wouldn't expect to learn to be a plumber or a brain surgeon or whatever it might be without getting trained.
Right.
And that's why I'm a huge fan of education, because there's so much to learn, but it's there for the taking.
Yeah.
There's ways that you need to structure everything, and that has to start at the beginning. How to structure your business, how to structure your finances, how to structure your team, how to build a team, how to decide what kind of strategy is right for you, all these kind of things. So on the face of it, it's simple. Once you delve into it, it really isn't. And like anything that you want to approach professionally, you have to learn how to do it professionally. And the only way to do that is by learning from people who know what they're talking about.
I believe that we are going into one of the best buying cycles that we have seen since the last crash. We've got more motivated sellers. Interest rates have gone up crazy recently. We've got motivated landlords. The country needs houses. People need affordable accommodation. So we really encourage anyone tuning into this, get started in property. Start with one deal. Go through some of the ups and downs, but do it correctly and do it in the right environment. So this is going to be one episode, I'm sure, of many that we're going to be doing over the next few years. Thanks very much for tuning into this episode. Make sure you come and hang out with us at one of our events. There's a link or somewhere around this video or in this episode. You can also go to www.assetsforlife.co.uk and get booked on to one of our up and coming events.
Absolutely. We'll see you soon.
Great. Cheers. So if you are somebody that really wants to create more wealth for you and your future, then why don't you look at becoming a professional property investor where you can take advantage of the UK's #1 asset class and make passive income and also capital appreciation. So I'd invite you now to click the link in the comments or the bio and go and access my latest book called Property Success. This is where I introduce you to the 7 step-by-step system known as the Property Freedom Formula that I have used personally to do over £31 million worth of property development. So go and do that right now. I really hope you enjoy this asset, and it could be the difference that makes the difference and gets you up and running in the next 90 days.